belief. Just then, Mom came out and hugged Sabrina. "Oh, sis, it's been so long. I missed you so much." And then she turned to me and pulled me close. "Rachel, my child, I heard everything, and I'm so sorry, honey. I should have told you that I'm not your mom." "No, you are. You are my mom, and I love you. I shouldn't have fled without telling you. I like my life with you and Dad, but Mom, I just wanted to see more. You were always a curious one. Sweetheart, if that's what you want to do, you can have it. And there will always be a home for you here to come back to." As I hugged Mom tight, suddenly Lindsay let out a loud squeal. "OMG, Toby, baby, what are you doing here? Did you come all this way for me?" He gently pushed her aside. "No, I didn't, Lindsay. We're over. You can kiss or marry whoever you want." He pulled me to the side and said, "I came here for you. You didn't let me finish my sentence earlier. I wanted to tell you that I'm falling in love with you. With you, Rachel. And if you're moving to the city, I'd love to ask you out on a proper date." "I'd really like that. And I love you too, Toby."
I'm Troy, and this is my story about how all hell broke loose after I fell in love with my maid. Well, actually, her daughter. I walked into my living room, and that's when I first saw her. She was stunning. Her dark brown curls curtained her face, and she smiled to herself as she stood in the corner of the room, looking at the Van Gogh painting I gifted my mom last year. For a minute, the world stood still, and I forgot everything. All I knew is that I had to talk to this beautiful stranger in my house. "Hi, I'm Just then, my maid rushed in, practically pushing me aside, and dumped a pile of dirty laundry on her. She said, "Sandy, help me quickly." I couldn't help but gasp in horror. I said, "What are you doing? Who treats guests like that?" Both of them looked at me like I was crazy. Then the maid laughed and said, "This is my daughter, Sandra. We got kicked out of our house, so your father said we can live in the staff quarters for a while." Then she hurried away. I could barely believe my ears. This goddess was my maid's daughter, and she'd be living here? I said, "Really? I'm sorry. I didn't think you were..." She said, "That I was what?" "Oh, Buggy Boo, where are you?" I flinched as my girlfriend, and soon-to-be fiancé, Christina's shrill voice screeched in my ears. I had completely forgotten that she was coming over. She was immediately all over me, and quickly put her arms through mine, like she was marking her territory. Sandra looked between the two of us, and rolled her eyes as she walked away, carrying the clothes. My heart hammered in my chest, and I couldn't take my eyes off her. Christina dragged me to my room. Sometimes, I hated it when Christina acted like that. What we had was real, and not just a stupid business deal between our parents. It made me feel so guilty that I couldn't love her the way she loved me. The next day, even though it was the weekend, I woke up early, threw on my best clothes, and rushed down the stairs. I had a woman to impress, but halfway down the stairs I realized I put on my shirt inside out. I hurried back to change. Why was I getting so nervous? She was, after all, just another girl. But as soon as I entered the kitchen, my heart stood still. She was looking as perfect as ever. As she took away the empty coffee cups, she saw me staring and looked away, half annoyed, half shy. Mom and Dad looked pretty shocked to see me. Dad said, "Looks like the sun has finally risen in the west. My son is up on time." Sandra let out a giggle as she turned away to stack the cups on the sideboard. Mom and Dad both rose and left the room. This was my moment. I puffed my chest and motioned for her to pour me some juice. As soon as she came near me, I said, "You're so beautiful, Sandra. Where do you go to school?" She looked at me a bit angrily and turned to leave. I followed her and asked why she was mad at me. I hadn't done anything to justify her anger. She said, "I know rich boys like you. I may be new to you, but I know you're almost engaged. I'm not gonna be your toy." I stared in shock. I stared in shock as she turned and left. I couldn't believe she would think I was like the other guys, or that I was trying to use her. It's not like she knew how painful it was for me to look at Christina every day, knowing that I could not love her. But right now, all that mattered was that I had to change what this girl thought about me, and I knew just how to do it. I ran to my mom and made a call. An hour later, the butler had brought a whole rack of the most expensive Prada outfits and matching jewelry. Then, I had them send Sandra in. "There you go. These are all for you." She looked at me angrily and said, "I can't believe you're trying to buy me with these things. I'm not like that." She just stormed out. She didn't like these? I ran back to my room and changed out of my expensive clothes, to the oldest and cheapest ones I had. Ah, yes! The Burberry ones will do. Then I made my way to the kitchen. As I expected, Sandra was there, washing dishes. I immediately told everyone else to leave and offered to help. You were right. I shouldn't have tried that. I'll do better from now on. She looked shocked at first, then smiled ever so sweetly as she passed me the dishes. But instead of helping me wash, she just skipped away saying, "Have fun." I had to do all the dishes, alone. A few days later, I had another brilliant idea. I saw how she grumbled to her mom every time she had to do laundry. So I woke up early and put the entire house's sheets in the wash. It took me a long time to get this stupid machine working. She came in just as the machine buzzed. Sandra looked at me, rolled her eyes, and pushed me out. Raising one eyebrow, she said, "That was romantic, but please, leave." I walked away, red in the face. She didn't realize it, but just now, she touched my hand. My heart was pounding. Maybe this was the start of something new. But then I heard her scream. I rushed back to see her staring in horror at the laundry she'd taken out of the machine. Somehow, all the sheets had turned pink. I tried to help, but she simply said, "Your mom will kill me if she sees you doing chores. Please go away." I saw a half smile on her face. Maybe she was starting to like me. But I was getting more and more heartbroken by the day. I couldn't go see her in the staff quarters, and when she was in the main house, Sandra stayed far away from me. And she was always busy. When she wasn't working, she was studying. Oh, she was perfect, beautiful, and smart. That gave me another idea. A few weeks later, I went to her and gave her a gift I knew she couldn't refuse. Enrollment papers for the same private school as me. Here, these are for you. Take them. And don't just say no because you don't like me. This is a wonderful opportunity for you. Her eyes welled up, and she said, "I can't explain how much this means to me. Thank you." Then she leaned in and kissed me on the cheek. Oh my god, that felt amazing. The next day, when we were leaving for school, I ran outside after her. "Hey, hold up. Hi, Sandra." She turned to look at me with a shy smile. "Yes, Troy? What can I do for you?" I asked if she wanted to go to school with me. "I mean, if you want to. It's really far." And you turned to look at me with a shy smile. "Yes, Troy? What can I do for you?" I asked if she wanted to go to school with me. "I mean, if you want to. It's really far, and you might have missed the bus." "I don't want to anger your girlfriend before I even start school. I'm sorry, but no." She walked past me, but it seemed like the universe was smiling at me because just then, the school bus drove past my house without slowing. The driver had forgotten to pick her up. Sandra ran behind the bus for a few paces, but it was too late. I'm not gonna lie, I was thrilled. I held her arm and opened the passenger door for her. "I believe this will be your ride for the day, ma'am." She gave me the most beautiful smile I've ever seen. Those 20 minutes were like the best time of my life. Not only was she breathtaking, but also really smart. For the time we were together in the car, she even seemed to let her guard down. I was so happy. But when we got to school, I had remembered the one thing I had forgotten over the last few weeks. Christina. The minute she saw my car pull into the parking lot, she ran over, screeching. "Oh, Troy, I missed you, Gum-Gums." Sandra laughed and said, "Gum-Gums?" Then she got out of the car. When Christina saw her, she looked like she was gonna have a seizure. Christina said, excuse me? Who are you, and why are you getting out of my boyfriend's car?" Sandra rolled her beautiful eyes and tried to walk away, but Christina started to scream at her. "You were in his house that day, weren't you? Who are you, and why were you in his house?" "I'm his maid's daughter. I live at his place. Now please get out of my way." Christina looked shocked and pulled Sandy's arm. She was clearly out for blood. Christina said, "I am not done with you, you witch!" I jumped out of the car and hurried to where they were standing. "Come on, she missed her bus. It's not a big deal. Just drop it." But she kept glaring at Sandy. Sandy looked at me in disbelief. Thankfully, just then, somebody pushed to the front of the crowd that had gathered. "Beat it, losers. Nothing to see here." It was Zach, my best friend. Zach marched up to Christina and said, "If you're so insecure, fight your boyfriend. Don't go around bullying innocent people." Then he led Sandra away. As glad as I was for his help, I was furious as I watched the two of them walk away together. I wanted to be the one protecting her. Throughout the day, I was so angry. I couldn't stop thinking about why I was so much more concerned about my maid than my soon-to-be fiancé. I promised myself that, at least when we were in school, and when Christina was around, I would not think of Sandra. I tried, but I couldn't stop myself. And it wasn't long before I went looking for Sandra. She was in some math class, I quickly slid in through the door when the teacher wasn't looking and sat a few seats over from her. When she looked at me, she smiled. I was so thrilled. I grabbed a pen and paper and wrote a little note. I passed it to her. The letter said, "I saw home in your eyes, and I found love in your smile." When she read it, I kid you not, she blushed and smiled widely. I felt like the king of the world. After school, I found Mom waiting for me at the door and smiled widely. I felt like the king of the world. After school, I found Mom waiting for me at the door. She looked like a real fire-breathing dragon. Clearly, Christina had called her. Sandra looked at her and rushed inside. I was on my own. As soon as I got in, she began to cry and started yelling about how I was disgracing the family by driving my maid around. "It's no big deal, Mom. She missed her bus." The next day, Sandra didn't show up when the bus came. I couldn't go check on her because Mom kept looking at me. So I snuck into the kitchen and asked her mom. Sandra's mom said she's not been well. She had nightmares all of last night. I told her to sleep in. Nightmares? Oh no. But luckily, I knew just what to do. I ran to my room and grabbed one of my most precious possessions, a dream catcher. Then, I ran to her room. Luckily, it was on the ground floor. I made my way to her window and tied my dream catcher outside it. Just as I turned to leave, she threw open the window. "What are you do?" Her eyes had landed on the dream catcher I had hung up. "You were having nightmares. My grandma made this for me when I was a kid. It helps me feel safe." Suddenly, Sandra did the most unbelievable thing. She leaned forward, out of the window, and kissed me. "Thank you." I stumbled back. I was spellbound. My heart beat like crazy. Christina had given me 1,000 kisses, but nothing had felt as magical as Sandy's lips on mine. She blushed and closed the window. The next week, we had a students-only trip to a forest retreat, and we were all sent the location details via email. Before I could ask Sandra if she wanted to come with me, Christina announced to everyone that we were going together. There was no way I could get out of it. I called Zach and asked him to make sure Sandra got there safely with him. But when Christina and I got there, Zach was already waiting for us. He said when he went to pick up Sandra, her mom said she'd already gone with some girls. They said Christina had sent them to pick Sandra up. The color drained from Christina's face, and I knew immediately that she had done something horrible. I called Sandy, and when she picked up her phone, she was crying. I thought my heart would break at the sound. "Where are you, Sandy?" "I don't know. They said you would be waiting for me." The phone disconnected. I tried calling her again, but it was no use. There was no signal. I turned and yelled at Christina. "What did you do? Where is she?" At first, she said she had no idea what I was talking about, but when I threatened to break off the engagement, she said she didn't know where Sandy was. I just told him to make sure she didn't come here. They dropped her a few miles inside the grounds. We didn't check her coordinates. "You what?" Both Zach and I jumped to our feet and split up as we began our search for Sandra. I also called for backup and then went to the forest. "Sandra! Sandra!" I was so crazy worried. I had no idea where or how far I had wandered into the forest. Luckily, I found Sandra soon after. She was sitting on a rock, looking terrified. As soon as she saw me, she ran up to me and hugged me. "Oh, Troy, I was so scared. I thought I was lost forever, and I would never see." She was sitting on a rock, looking terrified. As soon as she saw me, she ran up to me and hugged me. "Oh, Troy, I was so scared. I thought I was lost forever, and I would never see my room, or my books, or Mom, or you." My heart leapt with joy. Even though we were lost in the middle of the forest, she had finally admitted she cared for me. I was on cloud 9. "Sandra, I love you, Sandra. Ever since the moment I first looked at you, I never loved Christina. All these months I was putting up with her and it was fine. But then I saw you, and it was as if my whole world lit up. But Troy, we can't be your parents. They would fire me if they knew. I know, it's going to be tough, but I'll find a way for us to be together. I promise. Just hold my hand and trust me, will you?" For a minute, she was silent, and I was afraid she might say no. My heart would break. But then, she simply kissed me and said, "I love you, Troy." We waited for the rescue team, but it didn't show up. Sometime in the night, Sandra dozed off with her head on my shoulder. A little while later, I fell asleep too. When I woke up the next morning, Sandra was gone. I jumped up and breathed in relief to see her near a tree, a bit farther off. I asked her what she was doing, and she moved aside to show me. She had carved our names into the tree. Don't they look nice together? I was so overwhelmed that I kissed her as the sun shined behind us. In that moment, everything was perfect. When we were finally rescued, I couldn't help but think they had come too soon. The next day, I woke up happier than I'd ever been. I sang and danced as I ran for breakfast. But to my surprise, Sandy wasn't there. Mom and Dad had breakfast and got up to leave. I asked them where Sandy and her mom were. They said that they had fired Sandy and her mom. What? Why? Dad suddenly looked mad. He yelled for trying to trick my son to get money, even though he's practically engaged to another girl. Christina's dad called to complain that you were going around chasing your maid. Don't you realize how profitable working with him can be? Dad, I don't care about your stupid business. I love her. You love her. Are you crazy? Maybe he's not crazy. Maybe he's like his father, who also married for love, even though he seems to have forgotten. Dad froze for a minute and looked between Mom and me. I waited, fearfully. Finally, he softened and said, "Okay."